Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara. I'm here to welcome you into the world of orgasmic living by hosting experts to discuss orgasmic topics such as nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Here, we will offer lifestyle lessons that can help you lead a fulfilling, joyous, and orgasmic lifestyle. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 105 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this new moon episode, we discuss weirdness, spiritual awakenings, and spiritual entrepreneurship. We speak with Steve Nobel, a spiritual author, 5D ascension mentor, coach, and healer. I also review the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for embracing your weirdness. It's the first new moon of the year. What a great way to start this lunar year with Steve Nobel. Steve Nobel is a meditation teacher and many other things. And I have been listening to his content ever since 2020, when I discovered the app Insight Timer, which is a very popular meditation app. I'm actually on there myself if you want to check out my meditations. And what struck me about Steve's meditations is that they're kind of different from any other types of meditations. They're more like experiences, and they're quite surreal if you're not, I don't know how to describe it, but I think they're pretty out there. And that's exactly what I loved from them. They were kind of these transformative experiences that took me into another dimension. And he has some affirmations as well as some transmissions. And I've got to the point where I'm actually listening to his voice every morning and every night. And recently I read his book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur, which I have reviewed on this podcast. And what's great about it is that as much as his meditations are kind of very much out there, The Spiritual Entrepreneur is a very grounded book. It's very important when you are on a spiritual journey to remain grounded, especially if you want to work in this industry. Sometimes people are too much, in the clouds, and they lack a grounding where you need to have some business knowledge about funnels, about money, about marketing, and all of these things that you cannot really ignore. But one recurring theme in the interviews I've seen with Steve Nobel and even in his book, he talks about embracing your weirdness. And I would say, in my version, would be honoring your weirdness, leveraging your weirdness. And that's a journey that I have been on as well. And it's something I really resonate with him about, because I was brought up in Manchester. I was in a school where, let's say, the kids were quite tough. The same school as Liam and Noel Gallagher. So you can imagine what that might have been like. And so, yeah, it was, and I was someone who was very ambitious. I was very academic, and I knew that academia would set me free somehow. And I remember in my very first French class, I just knew at the age of 11 that I would end up living abroad. And I just had this idea of living abroad in general and how it would be really cool to speak a different language every day. And that's exactly what I've manifested, even though after France, I got Latin fever and now I'm in Spain. But I've lived most of my life speaking foreign tongues. And I just find it just feels very normal to me. But those teenage years are very hard for most people. And it's a time when if you are a bit different, you can be bullied. And I wouldn't say bullies is a bit of an extreme word, but I did attract some very negative attention and name calling. And, in Manchester, with a Manchester accent, everyone would say to me, "You're a fucking weirdo, you weirdo." And I had to endure that all the time. Sometimes I kind of thought it was a weird compliment. But I do now though. I think at the time though, when you're a teenager, you want to fit in. You want to be part of the popular gang, wear what everyone else is wearing. You can be embarrassed about the clothes you're wearing, especially when it's own clothes day. I used to dread that day where all the popular kids would come in there designer stuff, sports designer labels, and I'd be like, oh my god, what am I going to wear? But so me and my friends, we would just like get very grungy, and then everyone was saying, you're a fucking weirdo. So at that point where I got to 15, 16, and I was into indie music, late 90s indie music, Bjork and Stone Roses and all of that kind of stuff, which was really a celebration of weirdness, and I kind of started to embrace it a bit more. And then as you get older and leave school and everyone starts getting these normal lives of semi-detached houses and mortgages and families and all of that, then I decided, I just kind of, followed my own path, and I've been leveraging my weirdness ever since. And it comes to a point where as soon as you kind of acknowledge your weirdness or what makes you unique and stop trying to hide, that's when the real juice of life emerges. And even throughout my 20s, I was still trying to fit in, even though I was living in Barcelona. I was still trying to, work in companies where I would be a very obedient, high-performing employee. Never quite got the treatment that I thought I deserved. So I guess this pushed me into a very unconventional path of becoming a sex blogger. And then I just went all in on my uniqueness. And the more unique I've been, the more my work is celebrated, the more opportunities that come for me. But at the same time, I do feel incredibly normal and grounded for me at least. And so I wanted to celebrate the fact of weirdness today in the affirmations track. I do believe that when we acknowledge who we really are and stop trying to fit into other people's ideas, then that's when life becomes very interesting. Also in the context of, work and dating. I remember I was talking to a guy lately, a friend of mine, who was talking about what he lied about on his dating profiles. And he lied about age and profession. And at the end of the day, he said he was doing that because he didn't want to be judged by someone else. But at the end of the day, it's about him not accepting himself. That's what I think anyway. And I, to some degree, have done the same, thinking, oh my God, no one's going to accept me because I'm a sex blogger. They're going to think I'm a sex maniac. And then that's going to cause discomfort and rejection. But then again, I've realized that I've been judging other people based on my own limited beliefs. But what's interesting in the world of social media is that often people really blow up when they start to embrace their authenticity, and people find that very refreshing, someone who's going against the grain. But at the same time, there is this standardized Instagram influencer image, and a lot of people try to, conform to that and are influenced by that. And that can cause a lot of negativity when you are doom scrolling. So I think it's very important when we are, thinking about who are we looking up to? Whose advice are we taking? What is the content we are consuming? What kind of effect is it having upon us? Is it making us feel FOMO? Is it making us feel insecure? Or is it actually adding value? Because what's really interesting or cool, in my opinion, is that when you start following people who really are embracing their weirdness, honoring their uniqueness and authenticity, you can just open Instagram or any social media platform and just find pure undiluted inspiration all the time, because the algorithm will just give you more of what you're interested in. And that's exactly how I have learned so much about spirituality, because I started looking at one topic and then the algorithm understands, oh, you like this, so more of this. And I'm like, oh, what is that? Oh, click. And then I learn new things all over. So yeah, I just wanted to just mention that about honoring our weirdness. And yeah, so it's really nice to feel that you are seen by other people, and that you don't have to be less of what you are, or too much, or no one's thinking you're too much. I've had that issue recently in my personal life, feeling in parallel that I was not enough and too much for someone at the same time, if that makes any sense. But at the end of the day, we just have to, just be true to ourselves and honor the weirdness. Yes, and I hope you enjoyed this interview that's coming. And of course, the weirdness, the weird affirmations at the end. Dear listener, Due to popular demand, I am so thrilled to be offering 60-minute Zoom sessions just for you. Imagine an hour talking to me, oh my God, about all of the topics that I am a specialist in. I can help you with sexual wellness consulting. That could involve your sexual wellness business or even your personal life if you need some sex coaching to spice up your life with your partner or even your solo sex life. I can definitely help you with that. I'm also offering self-love mentoring, and I'll be testing out my materials for my forthcoming self-love retreat. And these sessions are getting some excellent feedback. I'm also offering orgasmic manifestation, the sex magic guidance, which is the topic of my book, and it's something that I am also very passionate about. I'm having excellent results with. And also life in Barcelona. If you want to visit Barcelona or live in Barcelona, I am your woman. I can provide you with lots of tips. And last but not least, if you need a personal shopper for your pleasure product purchases, PPPPP, I am your woman. So we can connect and I will show you the best products for your needs. So are you ready to take the next step? If so, secure your spot today by visiting my website, venusohara.org, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. Let's make this hour all about you and your orgasmic journey. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Steve Nobel, spiritual author, 5D ascension mentor, coach and healer, and much more. Steve Nobel, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Mostly weird stuff is what I do. Uh, Kind of spiritual coaching. There's a healing system I developed. Um, I'm very active on YouTube, on many social media platforms. I offer lots of resources for people in the spiritual awakening process, meditations, transmissions, affirmations, and various other tracks. So there's lots of help.
Amazing. So what inspired you to follow this path?
Well, I was a kind of odd child, and my parents kind of knew I was an odd child, and they were okay as a child. I was very drawn to sci-fi, alternative, magical stuff. They were less keen when I was a teenager. Uh, they they tolerated Star Trek, but not much more, I think. So but in my teenage years, I started exploring spirituality. I bought a whole library of books, um, trying to understand a lot of it. I explored a lot of organizations, and some of them said, "You're too young." I was about 15. They kind of said, "Come back when you're 21," which I can understand was probably a good advice, really. I explored yoga, macrobiotics, and martial arts at 15. So I was becoming weirder even for my friends. And I was on a journey. I didn't really know where I was going, or I was looking for something. By the age of about 17, I gave up thinking, I don't know what I'm looking for. So I try to be normal. I went into banking and got married, had two children by the age of 25. So I tried normal for 10, 15 years. And really, there was an explosion or reignition of that interest when my father died in 1991. And then I really started finding my way. I experienced synchronicity, which I had no idea of or concept of, and I was guided to many teachers and channels and books, and that saw me through the next 20 years, basically. So it was quite a magical. And then I realized what I was looking for was a magical universe, and I was never able to find it. And then the door opened in my early 30s, and it's suddenly like, oh, there is a magical universe. How amazing!
Amazing.
So
I love the fact that you've mentioned the word weird a few times because
yeah,
when I was reading this book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur,
yeah,
you mentioned something about that you purposefully want to appeal to the people who understand your brand of weirdness. I can't remember exactly where it was.
yeah.
So how do you think, when did you realize that weirdness was an asset?
Well, when I started the journey, I was trying my best to navigate weirdness with, family and all the rest of it. Um, I think I became very involved in a spiritual organization in London called Alternatives.
Mm.
And was really embracing a lot of different ideas. I became a director in January 2000. I think that's when I really had to embrace my weirdness, because being a director of a weird company is a bit different than actually just going along and helping out. And so I had to kind of own, but even in that company, I made the decision with the other directors to bring it to the middle ground, not to be too out there so that we can attract a big audience. But in my own personal life, I was sailing out into the cosmos, doing all kinds of light body activations and following all these channels and metaphysical teachers and shamanism and then eventually Wicca. So I was exploring all these diverse parts. And I remember one time, because I was probably the visionary of the organization for quite a while. And I remember having a conversation with one of the directors in the organization, and he just said to me, "I've got no idea what you're saying, but I trust you." And I think that's how they operated, because they kind of saw I was operating on a different vision, a different level of intuition, and they kind of trusted it worked. So I had to embrace that my intuition actually was a great asset and my vision was a great asset. And it helped really move the organization into a higher octave of money and morale and everything. So that was a great learning experience of really embracing. But then when it came to me doing this, which is the Soul Matrix, what I'm doing now, this was a whole new level of weird. And I just, I remember one morning waking up and a voice in my head, one of those voices and not your own voice. You have to kind of learn which is my voice, which is not my voice. And it was not my voice. Start teaching about star seeds and ascension. And it struck me as, oh my gosh, I'm being asked to step up to a whole new level of weirdness. And I wasn't really prepared for it. And I meditated for 2 weeks. Really, am I ready for this? Because I knew I can't just say yes and just do it half-heartedly. I have to really do it 1,000%. So after 2 weeks, I got the answer. I'm just going to do it. I don't care. My kids already think I'm completely balmy anyway. My grandkids, I've got 4 granddaughters who knows what they think of me anyway.
Mhm.
So I decided to say yes. I embraced it, and what I've discovered, and in that book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur, I wrote a chapter called "Your Weirdness is Your Brilliance," because it really took me a long time to understand that the more weird I am, the more in this business I'm in, the more attractive I become to the very people looking for me, rather
Mhm.
than trying to be the same old, like I could be one of 20,000 Reiki healers or something. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to do exactly what I wanted to do and not be afraid of being seen, being heard for what I have to say. And so now I'm quite public about a lot of weird ideas.
Mhm.
And I don't think my children have actually heard any of my videos. They know I'm on YouTube, but I don't think they've really listened to any of them. And my
You-
grandkids have, because they said, "Granddad, what is all this?" They've listened and they've liked them, but not my children.
So you've mentioned I've seen a few more interviews with you as well, and you've mentioned the family maybe not as weird or not quite understanding that. How has that been for you, and how do you think it would have been to have, let's say, a close family that embraced the weirdness like you did and encouraged it, perhaps? Do you think the resistance made you more weird or made you embrace it even more? Have you
I
ever thought
think,
about that? What it
yeah,
would be like to have, like, say, liberal parents or something like that?
yeah. I think before we come into this incarnation, we choose the setup, we choose the hurdles, so we choose it all for a reason. We choose the gym we're going to go into. And what I've realized is some people choose parents that are really going to help bring out their innate abilities. So I've got a friend I've known him from a young boy, like when he was like 3 or 4. His mother's an actress, singer. His father is an actor, still doing very much in the acting world. He's now 26, flourishing because his parents have brought out this wonderful, in him. There are others a bit like me that actually choose to be blocked and limited as a way of just building up the tension of at a certain point in life going, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I've had enough of it, kind of builds up that tension. And
Mm,
so I think that's what I did. I decided to limit myself. My family were blocking me in every which way about spirituality. My ex-wife was just like, no, none of this. We're Catholic. We ain't doing any of this stuff. She used to say to me, "What cult are you in now, Steve?" So as a kind of a sign of my increasing weirdness, you know. And I think that tension, when I was finally released, just said, you know what, I'm just going to explore everything. I'm just going to find what works. And so it worked for me being limited for a time. That was just it's like I'm ready to do the race and I'm being pulled back and then eventually, boom, off I go.
mhm.
So, but I think there is two, as you're right, there's two choices. And it would be lovely actually to have very supportive parents. It would be lovely. My astrology is North Node Scorpio, and so I chose this lifetime 12th house, not to be lovely, not to be easy, always to be edgy and difficult.
Mm.
That, I hope next one's going to be easier.
So did you find it? I mean, I think nowadays it's easy to connect with other weird communities thanks to social media. What about
Yeah.
before then? Was it kind of lonely for you, or did you magnetize other weirdos into your life?
Well, at the beginning of my path in 1991, I started to started seeing a crystal healer, and she introduced me to all kinds of other people. And I met this spiritual teacher, and I just asked her, about are all your friends spiritual? She said, "Oh yes, all my friends are spiritual." And it made me wonder that most of my friends were not. And I kind of considered, wouldn't it be great to have all my friends in the same mode? I mean, now in my time of life, all of my family are not, but I love them, they love me, and that's fine. We're connected by blood. But all of my soul community are in the zone. They have their own take on it, but it'll be very difficult just to go and meet someone and just talk about mundane, what was on Netflix last night. I mean,
Mm.
and nothing deeper. I do like have some deeper conversations rather than just the superficial stuff you get. So now I do have a kind of soul community. I really appreciate all the people that I can connect with and have good conversations with, really.
So what's your advice to any weirdos listening to this?
Go and find your community, find your own brand of weirdness, whatever that is. It could be creative weirdness, spiritual weirdness. It could be, it could be romantic weirdness. It could be whatever you want it to be. Um, Go find them online, and it's also nice to find them in person. I mean, there's on YouTube. When I was awakening in the early 90s, there was no YouTube, there was no internet, there was nothing like that. And so there's a lot more resources now to go and find. So I eventually did find real communities that I can hug and sit in circles with, which is fabulous. Go and meditate with people, go and hang out and have tea with people, have deep conversations. And I know there are people who live in areas, particularly like in America in the Bible Belt, who've said,
Mm.
yeah, but Steve, all my neighbors are would be freaked if they knew what I was up to. And then either you must move or just go online. We've always got choices, really.
Mm.
I left London. London is pretty alternative. Just before lockdown, I had the intuition leave London, and I followed the guidance. So I also had the intuition put everything online. I came to Brighton, which is very alternative. There's a lot of it's kind of known as a kind of one of the alternative capitals in the world. I was considering going to Glastonbury, which is really out there. I love Glastonbury, but I couldn't live there. It's just too out there. So I had to find my own community where I feel comfortable. So, as far as possible, if you can move to a place where you're going to meet more like-minded people, if possible. Yeah.
Mhm. Definitely. So I discovered you on Insight Timer
Oh,
many,
yeah.
and I always remember like your meditations are different from any other meditations. I always look for meditations that are aligned with my desired outcome. So obviously things like money are very popular. I just first
Yeah.
found the abundance ones. And so how is your creative process? I find also that what is a transmission? What's the difference between a meditation and a transmission? And what's your inspiration, your creative process?
Well, a transmission is really calling on higher vibrational beings and energies and angels to transmit that energy through my voice and to create change in the person listening to it. So that's the idea of the transmission. Whereas, a regular guided visualization might be, okay, now guys, we're going to see the unicorns coming down the path, and you're going to greet it and stroke it. It's going to love you. That is not a transmission. Transmission is really connecting your energy field to something higher and to create some form of transformation, some form of change. And you mentioned, higher outcomes, every or desired outcomes, every single track I do has to have an end point that has to be clear to me. That's part of my process. I get an idea or I get downloaded something and I go, oh, so I did do a morning meditation a few days ago, and in that meditation, I got told um, you have to do something around satanic imprinting of music tracks and TV tracks and movie tracks, because there's this process of dark forces actually taking these tracks and doing a ritual over them and spreading the opposite of what I'm doing, spreading dark vibrations through it. So some people might listen to certain tracks and go, well, the lyrics sound nice, but it's just a heaviness or a darkness connected to the track or the movie. So actually, this morning before we talked, I've been working on it for a few days, and my process, and I recorded it just before we did this podcast. So the process is I get the idea, and I get the original idea, and then I get the download of, well, now what's the structure of this? How do we actually do the end goal of clearing this stuff? And it might come in waves over days or weeks. Some of them have taken months, where until it clicks in my being, and I run it through my being, go, oh, you know what? That seems to do the trick in my being. And if it works for me, I think it will work for most people. So it's kind of my body and my energy field is the lab I try it out in. And if there's something missing, it's a bit like the coaching question, what's missing here? And then I ask spirit, there's something missing. What is it? And then I'll get the download and click. Oh, the final jigsaw goes in, and now it works. Now it's ready to go out. And I think that adds the extra power to it, which is why people kind of comment they are really powerful and transformative and supporting because they're feeling the vibration of this, and not just it's not meant to just make you feel better. That's not the idea. I used to work with these guys who did transmissions, and I said, "Well, what do we do?" I did a retreat in where was it? Mount Shasta with these couple of guys, and they were into doing transmissions. And I said, "Okay, we're doing a session together, me and you. What is the point of it?" They go, "Oh, we'll just see, we'll just flow, we'll just know." And I'm like, that is not so I tune into my own outcome and I try as best as possible to weave it in with what they're doing. But it was a bit torturous for me because I just want to be clear. Where's it going? How do we get there? Is all the steps in place? Is it complete? Out it goes. So it's pretty kind of structured.
So do you actually write a script or do you just channel it and record?
I no, I for all of the meditations, transmissions, I actually have bullet points down, and when it actually when I actually record it, I might well go off because something in the moment comes in, and I'll go off and come back. But I have the kind of ladder or the bridge which I'm meant to cross, even though sometimes I'm like it moves about a bit because I could be told in a minute, oh, add this in. I'm like, oh, okay, and so I just do it.
Mhm.
So it is a bit like that, but generally I follow a bullet pointed. It's not a script that I'm reading out and now blood. It's actually okay. The first step is clear X. Okay, so I tune in. We're going to clear X, and then the next bit is do Y. Okay, so it actually the process I'm following do X and Y, but there may be a different way of doing X and Y as I'm doing it in the
Mhm.
moment. So I'm guided then.
I have a question that's happens to me all the time with meditation. I'm just going to check and see what the last ones I've listened to on Insight Timer because I listen to meditations every night and every morning. Then I do a kind of like silent one after breakfast.
Yeah.
So what happens to me normally, I'm doing like the long ones about, I think it was clearing a relationship or something like that. Let me see. Clearing energies with a personal situation. I've been doing that on repeat most nights.
Oh yeah.
Also, miracle flow meditation, inviting a higher vibrational fluidity. And so
Yeah.
what's happened to me normally, happens to me a lot, is I start the track and it says open body, open mind and all that. So I'm like there, like lying there, put my crystals, my rose quartz on my chest, and then I zone out and just kind of wake up at the end.
Oh yeah.
Is
Oh man.
that is that a good thing? What's
Uh,
happening there?
what
Is
can
that
happen?
normal?
Yeah, it used to happen to me a lot when I used to listen to other people. Well, what's happening is the conscious mind blips out, going, it's as much as I can really take in right now, and boom, it kind of switches off in a way, and the unconscious mind takes over, so it goes into the unconscious mind. Sometimes it's a good thing if there's any resistance patterns in the conscious mind, it can be bypassed by just switching it off. Eventually in time you should be able to listen to all of them completely consciously unless you're totally very tired and you're really tired and you're laying down in a kind of sleep mode and you listen to it, then you might kind of zone out. But I used to do that regularly myself, and then slowly over time my conscious mind was able to handle whatever was going on and stopped resisting or whatever it was doing. And yeah, so that's fine. It's going into your unconscious at certain levels. Ideally, over time, though, you should hear the whole thing consciously
Mm. I
eventually.
have done in the daytime the same ones. I'm like, oh, I didn't know it said that.
Yeah.
I've been kind of surprised. But another one that I really loved was I listened to the Awakened Entrepreneur every morning. That gets me in kind of,
Oh,
work
right.
mode.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, but one I really loved was the Unity Consciousness affirmations. The one affirmation I really love in that, which was the next step is always obvious. I think that's such a powerful affirmation. Like just
Yeah.
to say where this next, because I think in life, that's why we're looking to this type of content because we are lost to some degree. But it's nice to kind of know where the next step is always obvious. That's a really powerful statement.
The next step is always obvious. It comes from the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, which is
Mm,
uh, action through non-action, which is like the
mm,
mind goes, what?
mm,
And the next step is always obvious. You don't have to work it out; it just appears. It's a bit
mm.
like the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Remember the bridge? And if you remember in the film, it looked like a chasm, when he took the step out in faith, the bridge appeared that he couldn't see before. I don't know if you remember that.
I haven't seen it.
Um, so Wu Wei is it's this idea of entering the dance of life, and the next step is always obvious if we're guided, if we're in that flow, we feel it. And we might be. I'm offered lots of things all the time. Hey, would you like to join this summit? Would you like to join this? Would you like to be interviewed by me? And all. And I tune in. I get I don't feel anything. If it's flat or it's like no, then definitely not. If I get a oh yay uplifting, yum, sounds
We,
nice.
we heard that. Hope you got that for this podcast.
I did. I got well. Anyone called Venus have to say yes to being a Libran.
Amazing, amazing. And do you think, in your experience, I'm sure you've like helping lots of people with their spiritual awakening. Do you think spiritual awakenings are always the result of some kind of traumatic event, or can it just arise through natural curiosity? What's your experience of what you've seen around you?
It can arise through either a magical experience, a magical impulse, just being like a curiosity. Now, my first awakening was a combination of my father dying, which wasn't the traumatic because we were close, but just the way it was handled was very like, oh goodness, what's going on? But then the whole episode, I asked the question to the universe, there must be something more to life than this, like living, dying, paying the bills. And then the whole magical thing opened up just through the question. The whole thing opened up. My second awakening was much more difficult, much more trauma based, and much more dark night of the soul. So I think we can go through either path. Obviously, we prefer the first one, which is lighter, magical. We start doing affirmations, and most people enter, I think, enter the awakening process through that. They're looking for something that's more than the negativity or the judgments of the 3D world, the regular world. They want something more uplifting. My life needs to be more than this. I want to do something more with my life. And that can be a whole number of people that do that. They go on a journey to go, well, what is it I'm called to do? Am I called to do? Who am I? Why am I here? Those kind of questions open up this magical zone. And then there's this other sense of hitting something which feels like difficult, impossible, um, and that can throw us into this existential crisis, threw me into an existential crisis of, I don't know who I am anymore. All the things that had meaning no longer have meaning, and that's really difficult. So I've been through both the magical and the existential crisis. Both were very powerful in different ways. So either route is powerful in a different way, really. I think the Dark Knight is more the Saturn journey of Saturn, or it grinds through you, makes you really. It can give you a greater street cred. It makes you more authentic, but it's a grinding and powerful releasing and purging, a bit like doing an ayahuasca journey or something, where the magical one is taking a few magic mushrooms and going, "Wow, I can see all these beautiful visions." And so both journeys are, are relevant and powerful, I say.
I think mine was all about I was going through an incredibly difficult emotional time and I just discovered abdominal breathing and that just helped. It was very empowering because I realized that stress was a choice because if you learn to breathe in a different way, then I could choose that. And then I joined this group, an amazing group in Barcelona called the Zen of Hollywood. And it was
Oh,
taking Hollywood movies and taking the Zen message. And it just resonated so much with me. And then this situation I was living, which was very stressful, just became gradually less, it just bothered me less and less. And I just realized that it was like a more of a shift in perspective, like the shift, the Wayne Dyer
yeah.
documentary or whatever it was called. But it was kind of like that shift. And also what I found was it helped me with I've been a content creator for many years. So before I was thinking, how much can I get paid for this? Whereas after the spiritual awakening, I was thinking, how much or what can I contribute today? It was really interesting. Then there was no more writer's block. So
Yeah.
everything flowed more because it was more about service, and
That's a
it,
really good point, really, isn't it? The
yeah.
service becomes more important. That film, The Shift with Wayne Dyer, was just phenomenal. I really loved
Mhm.
that film. And the whole thing around t turning the mindset from what can I get to service is really important for any entrepreneur, spiritual entrepreneur particularly, because it takes the pressure away from, well, how much money am I making today? And how's my account? Of course, we've got to keep an eye on our accounts and everything, but I do keep an eye on money and flow and everything. But it's really like this transmission. The focus is how many people can it reach and transform? And that's the important thing, really, not how's my bank account going to be in, because it's a free track in the end anyway. How's my bank account going to be, impacted? So it's really important to go from service, and that's the whole thing about the awakening process. We become more service orientated, which is about helping others. And there is this giving and receiving naturally. The more we actually give to the world, the more it flows back. It just is one of those principles. I did it with crystals. I used to get crystals, give them away, and they just keep flowing into my life. I can't. My grandkids steal them. Well, they don't steal them. They ask, can they have them? But more come in. I've got whole stacks of them around everywhere.
Mhm.
And the other thing was when I was at Alternatives in another training company, I used to love giving away trainings for free. I'd say, look, I want, and I've given thousands of pounds worth of trainings away for free. In my own life, I've received probably somewhere about 12 grand's worth of training, at least for free, given. It's just that karmic, what goes out comes back. So
Mm.
it's really nice that if we send out love and appreciation to the world, it will come back, whether it's mental energy, emotional energy, or actual physical energy. Everything comes back. So if we let go, but we can't go, well, if I give you, this is what happens in the 3D world. If I give you love, you've got to give me love back. What happens is if I give, then it comes back from somewhere, not necessarily from the place I've given it. So we let go of the attachment of, like it's conditional love, isn't it? Or I'll give you this and you're going to give it back. So we just
Mm.
let go of that, which means the person receiving feel free of any strings. What you mean that it's for free? You're giving me love for free, and or appreciation. So yes, it will come back. I
Mhm.
get so much inspiration because I think what I'm doing is trying to uplift and inspire people. I get inspiration from everywhere, loads of inspirational channels. So I think what goes around comes around, basically.
Amazing. So speaking of love, let's talk about spiritual awakenings and relationships.
Yeah,
So, because the title of this podcast, The Orgasmic Lifestyle, is not just about orgasm, it's about reaching climax in all areas of life. So, optimizing, books, spirituality, health, nutrition, all of these things.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's a really big part of it. But obviously, relationships is potentially, is the most important part of life.
yeah.
It can be really hard having a spiritual awakening if, let's say, the person in your life doesn't quite get it. What advice would you give to someone going through a spiritual awakening whose
Oh
partner
yeah.
thinks they've lost their mind?
What I've found now, this may be good news for some people and not good news for others, is that if there's two people and one of them starts waking up, that relationship will tend to survive to the degree the other person is open to your process, not trying to block it or limit it or judge it. They don't have to follow it. They don't have to do it. They just have to go, you know what, I support you. That is a really good foundation for a successful relationship. And I've known many people like that, and doing well, where one partner is not particularly doing that, but they're just saying, I totally support you. They may be doing their own version of it silently in some other way, but they're not doing it. If someone is trying to block you, ridicule you, humiliate you, judge you, that relationship becomes increasingly on unsteady ground and eventually will probably end unless some shift happens with the person doing the blocking and limiting. Now,
Hmm.
that blocking and limiting may be silent. They may not be saying any judgments outwardly, but silently wishing that the other person would not do this path because they're worried that the relationship will end because they sense there's a shift in vibration because all relationships are vibrational in nature. And so, two people coming together with shared values, not of a spiritual nature, which is what happened in my first marriage. We had a shared vision of just a very regular kind. When I shifted into the spiritual zone, And she really didn't like it and started critiquing it and fearing it. That made our relationship on unsteady ground. Even though we tried counseling and everything, it wouldn't help. We are friendly now. We do have grandchildren. We do work together. Now we're apart. It's much easier. Um, for two people, who are both going through an awakening process, fabulous. That doesn't mean that the relationship will last forever either, because the paths may diverge. They may decide, you know what, I'm going that way and you're going that way. But it is usually more of a kind of more amicable ending often when that happens. So everything is vibrational. So um, hopefully, if you're going through an awakening and your partner's not, hopefully you can encourage them. Just allay their fears as far as possible, allay their doubts. You're not losing them, your plot. You are following a path that's necessary for your own well-being and the well-being of your family. Because what if you feel better, then everyone else will feel better, type of thing. You need to have the conversation. Um, in terms of single people who are looking for, and this is a kind of common complaint really of, well, I can't find anyone in the right vibe who's spiritual and open. Um, what I've found is if you really want a relationship, you will one that's open, uh, you can find it. If there's any resistance patterns in you, then there will tend to be a push-pull. One part of you will want it, another part of you will fear it or resist it. And a common one would be, for example, someone has gone through a difficult relationship where they feel traumatized and then they're out of it and go, you know what, now I want a new one that's happy. Part of them may still resist because they remember the trauma of the old one. So you have to kind of come to terms with that trauma or whatever was going on in the old one to go, I'm now 100% moving forward. Because if you're 100% moving forward, nothing should be able to stop you meeting people. We've got several billion people in the world, and there's lots of single people out there.
Mhm.
Maybe you have to travel a little bit to meet them, but that's all right. I've done a couple of long distance ones, which was great fun, So
I'm wondering if you're going to do Soul Matrix speed dating at some point because I think a lot of starseeds would tune in for that.
yeah, I haven't got any plans for that at the moment. I do recommend. I dived into the whole Tantra world for a while, for several to 10 years, I think. I find the Tantra world is really good for anyone who's into spirituality because Tantra, there are many Tantra teachers. You've got to find the right one. Usually women or couples are better. Single men as Tantra teachers can be a little bit more risky
Mm.
for reasons that you probably would
Yeah,
find
yeah.
obvious.
There's a lot of spiritual bypassing. There's a very dark side to that world, you know?
Yeah,
It's just very dark. I mean, I'm a sexuality expert, but I've never been attracted to that type of, these spiritual orgies of lots of people in a room doing yoni massages. I just think that's not really
yeah,
how I see sacred sexuality. I just see
yeah.
it more of a closed, intimate thing.
Well, the
So,
Tantra I dived into was much more boundaried, and there
mm,
are more boundaried teachers who teach boundaries or honor partnerships. So I've never been in a whole room with people doing yoni massages. I know about the on meditation.
yeah,
But
yeah,
and
that's
I've
very
heard
dark.
that was it Nicole something slow sex. I've heard her speak, but that was not something I'm drawn to. But Tantra itself, real Tantra, I think, is about energetic connection, intimate connection with someone, and it's about kind of connecting fully. And learning about your own boundaries as well. What's your yes, your no, your maybe. It's really
Mm.
important.
That's important for life as well. So going back to spiritual relationships, how has spirituality, or how do you think spirituality can help us deal with conflict in a relationship? I mean, that's a whole new level of. I mean, I find that I've become a lot calmer, and I'm kind of excited about the depth that can emerge from resolving conflicts. Whereas me 20 years ago or 10 years ago would have been like going
Ah,
crazy.
right.
So, but now I'm kind of like I embrace conflict to some degree. Have you had an experience like that, or do you have any opinion on how?
Yeah, I think we get greater tools because what spirituality does is shines a light inwardly, and we start becoming more aware of our internal processes, thoughts, beliefs, stories, judgments, all of this. So it becomes wonderful if two people are doing it. If two people are doing it to some extent, are looking in and going, you know what, I am sorry for that, or yes, I can adjust that, or yes, I didn't understand that this upset you so much. What is more difficult if it's one person is not doing that, is refusing to look inside, and is pointing the finger out, then that becomes a bit difficult. But even so, the one person still has the tools to as you say, mindfulness, calmness, affirmations. But
Mm,
it becomes difficult if one partner is refusing to look inside. Then the other partner will become very frustrated because they will feel dumped on and blamed, and they're taking ownership where the other person's just pointing the finger. That becomes difficult.
mm. A
Yeah.
lot of content I've seen online about, let's say, about dating and relationships seems very manipulative, like using silence to provoke certain reactions or just doing certain things to provoke certain reactions. And I have a friend who keeps sending me this type of content. And I'm thinking, well, if you're spiritual, it's not like that. It's not about opportunism, it's about love, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, I think once we start meditating, going in with the heart opens, because
mm,
before then we may be running more on the lower three chakras, which is kind of emotional, sexual, ego driven. But once the heart starts getting involved, um, because in my own life, I think I understood love from from a mental point of view. I thought that love meant, well, I like someone really strongly, I must love them. That was my feeling.
mm,
And then in the late 90s, I met someone and my heart was like, oh my God, what's happening? It felt like my heart was open. It wasn't always, it felt painful and beautiful. It was like and that was my first experience of actually in the body feeling the heart really going, this person we like. And I was like,
mm,
and I was 12 years with that person. So we start listening more to the heart than our lower centers. I think far too many relationships end up through just sexual attraction, chemistry, and nothing more, which is a shame, really, because um, that means a lot of children are being brought in the world in a kind of more unconscious manner because sex becomes unconscious then, unfortunately. So when we become more heart-based, connecting with the other person and start exploring values and interests and dreams and see where's shared ground and where do our hearts meet and where does our energy meet and where do we truly support each other, then it becomes a really beautiful journey.
mm,
Um, and of course, no journey as we're growing may be for life. And
mm.
in my experience, it would be my mind goes, I want a partner for life, but I've not found that's been the case. It's lasted a long time, marriage 15 years, long-term relationship 12 years, but I've never managed so far in this life. I think
Mhm.
my journey has just been too intense and volatile,
Mhm.
perhaps.
So that can be very difficult when you're constantly changing to find someone who's going to accompany all of those phases of your growth. And sometimes being single is more alluring because you want to have that freedom to grow without feeling restricted. Because we have restrictions with parents. We've had that in the past. 'Cause I've linked some relationships I've kind of taken me back to being 15 and not allowed out. I feel kind of controlled.
You've been there too. Okay.
Yeah, I have an Irish Catholic family and I'm a sexpert, so I know exactly what that journey is like and not being able to fully disclose your successes because no one's going to understand. And it's quite a lonely journey to some degree. So you have to know your audience.
You do. And I think sometimes we meet people that reflect elements of our parents. I know that my first marriage reflected a lot about my father. And it was only after we ended that I realized, oh my gosh, it was so much about my father's energy, a little bit more authoritative. This is what you're going to do. And then my next long-term relationship was more about my mother healing. She was a Cancerian, as was the partner, and it was a beautiful healing of that energy. It really helped me. And so I've noticed elements in partners of parents that's still unhealed in me.
Mm,
My inner child still, my dad. I remember my father would come in my room at night, 9 o'clock at night, go lights out. It's very military.
mm.
I was reading, no lights out. Oh, can't even read. You know.
It's a bed, yeah.
Yeah, and my father, a bit also he refused to let me watch Bewitched. I haven't forgotten it because it was just so silly. I think, why would you turn it off? It's just such a silly thing saying it's not suitable, and I've never forgotten it. Like Bewitched was so sweet, such a sweet witch. How could you think it's not suitable? But he had that idea about what was suitable, what wasn't suitable. So I know the restriction energy. Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
And do you think, 'cause I'm on a mission, like since I became spiritual, my whole vision of sexuality has changed. And I've just written my fourth book,
Oh,
It's going to be out in English in January. It's Orgasmic Manifestation.
oh, right.
And yeah, I'm really proud of it because I went, because when I became like previously my mission was all about overcoming taboo, female pleasure, and all of that. And now I'm thinking, oh, it's actually there's a whole new level. There's a power level of sexuality, like using it as a tool to kind of elevate and as a personal development tool, if you like, and a
Yeah.
manifestation for healing. So do you think you mentioned sexuality being a lower chakra thing, but do you think it can elevate?
Definitely, yes. Thank you for bringing that bit out. I didn't want to leave people thinking it's just a lower energy.
Yeah.
Um, all of our lower chakras, all of that energy can be uplifted and needs to be uplifted. It's not like we become spiritual, we just operate from the heart upwards. All of the lower chakras become more invigorated and more integrated. So I remember seeing, for example, images of hunters, like, these old cave drawings, like thousands of years old, but the hunters had erections.
Mm,
And I'm like, and arrows pointing to their target, prey or whatever. And they were using sexual energy in a way to achieve success in their hunting, I think. I think that's what they were doing. And I think the sexual energy is a primal energy that needs to be used in any dreaming or manifestation. I'm sure you're covering this in your book. We use this energy, primal force, as a way of attracting. And there are various practices where we can actually use orgasm in lovemaking for manifestation. I'm sure you know
mm,
about some of these. They have to be used very wisely. They have to be used with a great sense level of integrity. And if you've got a partner, it's good that they're on board, that you do it together, so that both of you can actually release, whether together at the same time, if you're well practiced, or separately, can release this energy through the astral plane, because it's a wave of energy through the astral planes,
mm,
um, of energy towards what you want to attract. It's highly, and unfortunately, so much of our energy is used or released in unconscious ways. Really, porn. I think porn industry is such a low
yeah,
vibe thing that's
absolutely.
actually channeling energy towards very dark and low vibe areas. That's not always apparent in whatever's going on there. So, um, yeah, and I think personally, in terms of sexuality, I mean, women have in Tantra, they say women have an almost unlimited sexual energy. And so women can orgasm, you know, forever, but men is quite limited in Taoism, for example. They say, when you get to a certain age, you have to limit and restrict. And I think there is a lot of truth in it that, men who just kind of willy-nilly just release their energy all over the place, age terribly, and their
Mm,
health really suffers. So I'm in my 60s now, and I'm very mindful about my energy,
mm,
with my partner. And
mm.
so it's really an area to really be mindful of, explore. And I'm sure your book does talk about a lot of
Mm.
these elements of using your energy wisely and with
Absolutely.
integrity and directing it. In the early days, I used to think, well, I'll direct all of this sexual energy to the angels. I'll just send it up to the angelic realm, and may they dance on it or something. I had this idea, and I thought they. I don't know if they did dance on it, but these days I don't do that so much. I do something else with it. But yeah, we can use sexual energy. It's almost like that primal battery of our body that we don't just kind of use it willy-nilly on,
Mm.
wasteful
Yeah.
things.
Because I've always said that because I've always been kind of anti-porn even before I was spiritual, but I've always found that porn was like the McDonald's of sexuality,
Yeah,
So, but I've also the reason why I think it's kind of not great for our sexuality is because it's an imagination killer. Because imagination is a massive tool for manifestation. Like
yeah,
visualizing your goals and what they feel like, what they look like, all of those things. And for that, it might be easier to close your eyes. But a lot of people who are dependent on porn, they just can't. They're all about what they're looking at. So
yeah,
I think sometimes it can be good to develop the imagination. I have a very developed imagination, so that's why it was easy for me to kind of get into this topic. I've changed my life with it. I read Think and Grow Rich, and that was like just oh my God, I thought it was a whole new understanding of sexuality. And we're
yeah,
going back to lower chakras.
yeah.
How can people who are very spiritual, because I think people are kind of in the clouds sometimes, how can people ground?
Um, Yeah, it's a very good point. Most people in the 3D world are too grounded in a way, too kind of boxy. And a lot of spiritual people are too floaty, and they're not really in. Is that saying be in the world but not of the world? We need to be in the world. And so there are practices, physical action, yoga, martial arts, massage, all these help. Um, Go out in nature. Wild nature is best. Gardening is fantastic. Sitting with trees. Trees are very grounding, rooting down. I mean, some people talk about smoky quartz crystals. I don't find them, they can to an extent, but I think all crystals tend to be uplifting.
Mm.
Um, Hugging, kissing, I walk daily. I like going shop. I do shopping and go to the organic shop. Have a long walk to the organic shop. Even if I go I go actually three times a week at least. The walking, I'm by the sea. Sitting by the sea is very grounding. Do anything which is really grounding your energy, where you feel more in touch with your body. Um, yeah, I think, is there anything else I would say? Breathing is good. Conscious breathing is good. Where you're aware of the breath, there's various breaths. You could do the 4-4-4 breath,
Mm.
breathe in for the count of four, hold four, out for four, hold for four. You could do that. There are the different hold loads of different ones. You probably know more about that than me. Um, just being mindful in terms of touch, like drinking tea and becoming aware of the tea. When I drink tea, I really try and feel each sip. Or when you're eating dinner or eating lunch or food or anything, try to be mindful of the taste. Be mindful of colors around you. All of these are very grounding. Sounds around you. Smell is very good. If your base chakra is not really active, your sense of smell would increasingly be switched off. So we have these sprays here, certain sprays full of essential oils, and I really notice if I'm not grounded, I can't smell them. So really, that's
That's
a good
interesting.
that's a good smell the roses. I always in summer smell roses. I love roses or scented flowers, and really get a sense of, can I smell? Is my base? There are meditations where you can open the lower chakras like great spheres of light and open and clear them, and that can help. And allowing light to run down through the spine into the earth. In meditation, sending roots down to the core of the earth, that can help for sure. Sending your energy down, but slowing down. If you're whizzing and speeding up, you're a bit floaty. Slowing. People who are very, very earthed are very slow, and you
Mm.
know,
Mhm.
sometimes. But I'm an air sign, so I'm a bit whizzy naturally. So I have to slow down.
What's your
I've
sign?
I'm a Libran sun, Scorpio rising, Pisces moon.
Oh, I'm a Gemini sun, Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising.
Oh, well, that's where you're attracted to. Scorpio loves the whole area of sexuality.
Yeah, and Gemini is the communicator, so it's like
Yeah.
I'm definitely following my mission for
What's
sure.
your moon?
Scorpio as well.
Scorpio as
Scorpio.
well.
Yeah.
Okay, intense emotions there will be.
Yeah.
You may have storms at times where you have to the sea of your emotions may be calm, and at times it might be stormy. You have to embrace the storm and embrace the
Mm.
calm, whatever's
Mhm.
going on. Yeah.
One question I had after the Star Seeds networking the other night, which was about, hygiene in the workplace. I
Oh
tend to
yeah.
be quite naturally messy. Is it really bad, like to be messy? I'm trying to I'm going through my whole apartment now and just like really getting rid of stuff. So I actually tidied my desk that before that session, or maybe it was after.
Yeah.
And I've got a bowl of salts on my Himalayan salt on here
Oh, very good.
and I've got some crystals, but actually on I already had crystals like citrine and pyrite, all kind of money ones, and the communication ones, like the blue ones. But now I've added a couple of protection ones because I never really thought about protection that much
Yeah.
before that session. So now I'm a bit more aware of protection because I think my field has been very open, maybe too open to people and different energies, and now I'm just dialing back a lot in my life in general. So I'm
Yeah.
also I tend to be quite messy, so I feel a bit guilty about the mess sometimes. 'Cause I have read
I
a
could.
sex magic book that said you're going to clean up if you're doing the sex magic. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
right. But your apartment, I can see it behind you. Looks really tidy.
yeah, well, I'm just doing it in bits.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
I've got
Rest of you.
I've got a lot of clothes on here. I'm just going through stuff and throwing things out. So I'm just yeah, I'm kind of going through everything at the moment.
Yeah. I think messy. My office. I allow my office to get a little bit messy here, and I tidy it up because I need the space. But highly creative people tend to be slightly messy anyway,
Okay.
and you have to live with that. Um, I don't think a creative person can be too anal ever.
Mm.
And there are lots of anal people around, but that will tend to stunt their creativity. I think it's fine to be a little bit messy and then tidy up practically. In terms of protection, might be good to wear something.
Mm.
Um, on your, on your body. So black crystals are pretty protective.
Mm,
Shungite is good for electromagnetic energies. We're bombarded with electromagnetic energies, or bracelets.
mm,
Saying that, I haven't put mine on this morning. I was a bit rushing today for various reasons, but I usually wear bracelets, pendant, and they can be used for different things magically. Different crystals being different things. I've got more rings than fingers, and each one has got a magical use.
mm.
And I've got loads of necklaces and loads of yeah, bracelets. I've had to give away a load recently, actually, because we're moving house, so I couldn't carry them all with me. Um, in terms of your flat, maybe I don't know if you've heard of the Feng Shui Bagua.
No.
I think it's spelled Bagua.
Okay.
If you Google it, and there's a Chinese one which is looks very Chinese and octagonal, and there's more intuitive ones which are kind of square. So basically, you find the square is easier to work with, and there's a doorway of chi, I think, that goes in, which aligns with your front door, where you come into your apartment, or is it apartment you've got there?
Yeah.
So we align it with that, and so it's divided into 9 squares, and so each square has a function like abundance, relationships, career, fame, health, family. And so what you can do is look at all of the corners and see what's actually going on in that corner. So, for example, in your abundance corner, well, in mine, for example, I've created a little altar with Aphrodite, Venus,
Mm,
Aphrodite there, Lakshmi, and there's a lot of citrine crystals, and I put some of these Bitcoin, uh, like they're a bit like I've got some coins like
oh
that,
yeah. Okay,
and I just
cool.
put a pile of Bitcoins. So they're not real Bitcoins, but they look like Bitcoins,
Uh-huh.
and representing. And actually, I've done very well with the crypto market. A lot of friends have done very badly, but I've done very well. So I've put a little altar there. In your relationship corner, you might want to put 2 hearts. Well, it depends what you want.
Mm,
2 hearts together, or something like in your career corner. For somebody like you want to put something that represents someone who's being seen, someone who's being appreciated, a picture of some kind perhaps. So you can look at, I mean, it's a whole area of energy flow in your flat. So feng shui, bagua, Bagua, and remember the door of chi is aligns with your front door, and there's a lots of YouTube videos about it. You can go and check it up. So if there's any area where you're struggling with, have a look at that area of your flat.
amazing. A couple of questions I ask all of my guests. I'm really curious about the how you can answer this one. What's the book that changed your life?
Oh, the book that
One. I know you
changed my
like
life.
quoted lots of books in spiritual entrepreneur, but is there one book?
Before my awakening, the book I absolutely adored was Lord of the Rings.
Mm,
I read it 20 times by the time I was 20, probably. After my awakening, the book that really changed my life was a book called Living Magically by Jill Edwards. She's passed now. She wrote that in the early 90s. I trained with her for 9 years. She revolutionized my mind and thinking. Um, and if I can give you one more book that actually she recommended, is that it's called The Nature of Personal Reality by
mm,
a channel called Seth. The
okay.
author is Jane Roberts. The Nature of Personal Reality. This book explains manifestation to a degree that I've never encountered anywhere since. And I don't think I understand all of it. It's a genius, genius. Nature of Personal Reality
I'm gonna
by Jane Roberts, and the actual entity coming through is this high vibrational being called Seth.
amazing.
And yeah,
Fantastic. Another question. What's the quote that you live by or affirmation?
um, one actually I gave recently is this world is for you to be free in. This world is for me to be free in, and all worlds are there for me to be free in. This world and all worlds are there for me to be free in.
Love it. Love it. So where can people find you?
My website is thesoulmatrix.com, soul spelled Soul, then matrix. You can find me on Instagram, Steve Nobel 101. You can find me on YouTube, Steve Nobel. I've got 186,000 followers. You can find me on Insight Timer, Steve Nobel, I think, and Facebook, Steve Nobel. You can find me. I'm a social media tart. If you go to my website, you should be able to find all of the other areas.
Yeah, I love I'm a really big fan of your meditations. I felt quite emotional actually on Monday listening to your live meditations. I listen to the same thing every night.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, this is like real.
Yeah.
Which
He's
was
not a robot. He's not AI. He's doing it for real.
yeah, because I think people find this content, through sometimes painful experiences. And I had a burnout in 2019, so that's how I discovered meditation and just
All right.
yeah, looking
Yeah,
for
that's one way of
balance.
finding it. And I hope you survived the lockdown. Well, you
Oh,
seem to
for
have survived
sure.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your
When
voice is
did
in
you
Barcelona every day.
when did you move to Barcelona?
20 years ago.
Oh, a long
I've spent
time.
most of my life abroad, so I've been here for a very long time. I came to teach English and never left, so it's been a very long
Right.
time. And I was in luxury real estate at the worst time, 2007 to 2009. No salary, commission only.
Right.
And I had all of this bad things happening in my personal life, like family deaths and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I'm going to become a sex blogger. No more fear. So the path chose me. I had to overcome all of that. What are people going to think?
Yeah.
But then as soon as I made that decision, I had a book deal, a GQ column. I just had all this came
Great.
came into my life quite easily. So, and then after becoming spiritual, that was a whole new level then. So,
Well, you
yeah.
have to send me a link to your book when it's out in English, and
Yeah,
I'll
it should be
get it.
January. Yeah.
And then maybe I'll interview you next year sometime.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll be in touch. I'm actually translating to English now.
Oh, cool.
I'm ready for a January world global launch, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it's my first time. It'll be my first time self-publishing. So I've got all the books I had previously with Penguin in Spain and Planeta in Spain, so kind of big publishers. So my book is very weird for the bookshops, and I'm next to Jay Shetty on the bookshelves, which is kind of cool. But yes, it's not for everyone.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be for our audiences.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because I'm really passionate about what I do as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we've met, Venus.
Yeah,
I've met
likewise.
Venus today.
Yes. The
Fabulous.
goddess of love. Yeah,
The goddess of love. Fabulous. Venus O'Hara. I mean, there's the Irish
definitely. I'm sure like I
set.
was a witch and for sure in a past life, it really resonates all this content with me, and all the witchy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, bring back the witches. Long may they live.
Yeah. I like the word sorcerer a bit more.
Oh, sorcerer.
Sorceress. Sorceress.
It
Yeah.
sounds very saucy. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorcerer.
I'd love to get to Glastonbury at some point. That sounds like a very magical place.
Yeah, we've got a retreat there in June, which is sold out. We might, we're thinking about doing another one sometime next year because there's about 12 people on the waiting list. So we think, should we do another one? Maybe. If we do,
Mm.
maybe come along. You'll love it.
Yeah. I'm sure I
It's
will.
fabulous. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been amazing connecting with you, and I'll be listening to you again tonight. I might we'll probably zone out, but it'll be all going in to the
Yeah.
subconscious.
All right, Venus. Lovely meeting you.
Likewise, have a nice day.
And
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
The book I'm reading now is Think and Grow Rich. Again, oh yeah, it might be the fourth time I'm reading this book. And this classic book is by Napoleon Hill. You've probably heard me speak about it quite a lot on this podcast, and that's because this is the book that changed my life. I'm reading it again because I am actually starting a new kind of reading club, book club with a friend, and we are reading a chapter at a time and then meeting up and going over the chapter. And this friend that I'm doing it with is someone who is one of the best listeners that I know, and he is someone who is incredibly thorough with details. And I know that it's going to be really thought-provoking, especially with a text that I already know and I already have had some incredible experiences thanks to it, thanks to the mental shifts that it has provoked within me. I know that I'm going to find some new things in the discussions with this particular friend. In parallel, I know another guy who's an investor, money guru, and I asked him what's the best book about money, and he said Think and Grow Rich. I was actually hoping for something a bit more practical, because I started my investing journey last year, and I'm really searching for more kind of practical tips on investment and wealth creation, etc. So Think and Grow Rich is kind of going back to mindset as opposed to practical tips. So I've read this book many times now, and I think when you get into a book and you read it more times, you always find something that you didn't quite remember the first time. So it's going to be interesting to go back into my old copy and see what I underlined previously, and if there's any going to be new things that I'll underline there again as well. There's also a workbook that I did with another friend a couple of years ago. We used to meet once a week and then do the exercises, and that was a great opportunity as well. And she actually just messaged me the other day saying, thank you for the Think and Grow Rich study group that we did, because now she's starting to manifest everything that she wrote down in those exercises that we did together. So yeah, anyway, the first lesson of riches in this book is desire. And it's really important to, in any manifestation journey, to know what you want. I mean, people complain about what they don't have, or what they have and they don't want, or what they don't have. And I think it's really important to actually know what you do want. And that might sound simple, but it's not as simple as you think. Some people just don't really know what they want. Because when you want something and you are really focused on that thing and all your actions are going towards that thing, it's kind of more likely to happen. I've been seeing some incredible manifestations of friends around me, and I'm in awe just seeing someone have this idea and work towards it relentlessly, to the point where, at first it seems like it's not working, but they keep on going, perseverance and belief, and then suddenly you start seeing results. And that's when those results are the things that, that's a real incentive to keep on going. And within any manifestation journey, I think it's important to have small achievable goals. That's something I've written in my book, Orgasmic Manifestation. And last night I was on a call with Steve Nobel. He has this Starseed business networking event. I think it's the last Monday of the month, and it was all about manifestation. And he was also talking about, this resistance when we, try to manifest very big things. There can be something in us that's like saying, no, you're not going to have that. So it's best to have things that don't create too much resistance, and that will, be easier to manifest. And I couldn't agree more with that. And so having that belief and desire is a great way to start. So I always start my manifestation processes with a wish list, and that's something I've gone over in my book. But going back to Think and Grow Rich, it really is a book about mindset and success. What is in the mind? How do rich people think? And how are those thoughts different from other people who don't quite make it in life? And I think that's why I love it so much. And I think every time I've read this book, I have attracted new things into my life. It really has had a positive impact on me. I'm not the only one. It's a timeless book, and it was published in 1937. And I think it took about 20 years to research. So he was researching the most successful people and trying to find out what their mindset was. And it's been translated to many languages, and it's still relevant today. So it's really timeless. I do love a lot of books from that era, the New Thought era. I also like The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, which was published about 10 years before. And I can't think right now, but maybe around that time. I also love The Magic of Thinking Big. I mean, a lot of these books are classics and can definitely be read and reread, and they're definitely relevant today. So yes, I am looking forward to what I will be discovering this time I read it. It's going to be a slower read than previous ones, because it's going to be one chapter a week while I read other books. And what I've really noticed is that I want to slow down my reading process. Sometimes I've tried to, I'm kind of reading one book and wanting to get to the next one. I don't know what it is about this hunger for knowledge that I have. And I'm trying to analyze where that comes from. Is that something that I feel like I'm not enough as I am? What is it that is driving this thirst for knowledge? Is it something good or something bad, or maybe a little bit of both? And I was discussing this with a therapist recently. So as a result, I'm actually decided to slow down my reading process, because now I'm still reading Psycho-Cybernetics, which I reviewed here on a previous episode. And it's taken me a long time because there's so many nuggets in this book that I don't want to rush it. So I'm reading just a few pages every morning, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm flabbergasted by how amazing it is. And that's another book that's from 1960. So that was a book about self-image. So it's always interesting to get these mindset tools. And also I'm working a lot with subconscious reprogramming right now. But when I ask myself, why do I want to learn so much? And the answer I've come to discover in myself is that I really want to live of the most fulfilling life that I can. And my biggest fear is not reaching my potential. And I know that I have things to address, some things that are deep down inside me that need to be acknowledged, held, heard, and healed. And I'm really working on that because I know that I can't ignore these things. These are like the foundation of who I am. And unless they are addressed and healed, I'm not going to get to the real good stuff in life. And that really does affect more things like self-worth, which, really will have a knock-on effect on things like relationships and work as well. Because I think everything comes down to worthiness at the end of the day, and knowing or feeling that you deserve and are worthy of your desires. So there is Think and Grow Rich. So I am looking forward to discovering new nuggets of wisdom in this fourth reading of Think and Grow Rich, and that is the book I'm reading now. Now it's time to slow things down as we prepare for this episode's guided affirmations meditation. It's probably not a good idea to listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. My weirdness is my superpower. I am proud to be weird. My weirdness is a gift that makes me stand out. I am proud to be unique and different. Being weird is a sign of my creativity and courage. My quirks make me unforgettable and authentic. I am grateful for the qualities that make me different. My weirdness is my superpower. I am proud to be weird. I am free to express my true self without judgment. Weird is wonderful, and I fully embrace it in myself. I am confident in my individuality and what it brings to the world. My weirdness attracts the right people into my life. I am grateful for the qualities that make me different. My weirdness is my superpower. I am proud to be weird. Weird is another word for extraordinary, and that's who I am. I am unapologetically myself and proud of it. My originality inspires others to embrace their own uniqueness. I am at peace with my individuality and quirks. I am grateful for the qualities that make me different. My weirdness is my superpower. I am proud to be weird. My weirdness is my strength. Being different makes me special. I am unique and unstoppable. Weird is wonderful. I am grateful for the qualities that make me different. My weirdness is my superpower. I am proud to be weird. I embrace my quirks fully. I am unapologetically me. I stand out and I love it. I am bold, weird, and proud. I am grateful for the qualities that make me different. Dear listener, due to popular demand, I am so thrilled to be offering 60-minute Zoom sessions just for you. Imagine an hour talking to me, oh my God, about all of the topics that I am a specialist in. I can help you with sexual wellness consulting. That could involve your sexual wellness business or even your personal life if you need some sex coaching to spice up your life with your partner or even your solo sex life. I can definitely help you with that. I'm also offering self-love mentoring, and I'll be testing out my materials for my forthcoming self-love retreat, and these sessions are getting some excellent feedback. I'm also offering Orgasmic Manifestation, the sex magic guidance, which is the topic of my book, and it's something that I am also very passionate about. I'm having excellent results with. And also Life in Barcelona. If you want to visit Barcelona or live in Barcelona, I am your woman. I can provide you with lots of tips. And last but not least, if you need a personal shopper for your pleasure product purchases, PPPPP, I am your woman, so we can connect and I will show you the best products for your needs. So are you ready to take the next step? If so, secure your spot today by visiting my website, venusohara.org, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. Let's make this hour all about you and your orgasmic journey. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram at instagram.com/venusohara. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening. Have an orgasmic week and make sure every day is a climax.